Have you ever had a moment where your entire world just stops? Not slowly, not gradually, but like a car hitting a concrete wall at 100 miles an hour. 1 second, you're living your life. The next, a single sentence, whispered in the dark, shatters everything you thought was real. My name is Lena. And this is the story of how a single flight, from New York to Paris, became the battleground for my life. It was supposed to be a celebration. A second honeymoon. A rekindling of the flame with the man I had loved since I was 22 years old. His name is Mark. My husband. Or, the man I thought was my husband. The plane was a giant bird of steel and dreams, taxiing towards the runway. The lights of JFK Airport blurred past my window. I remember feeling Mark's hand squeeze mine. It felt cold, distant. I chalked it up to pre-flight jitters. He always got a little nervous before takeoff. That's when she appeared. A flight attendant, her name tag read Chloe. Her smile was the picture of professional calm, but her eyes were screaming. They were wide, darting, filled with a panic she was desperately trying to contain. She leaned over me, as if to adjust an overhead bin that was already perfectly shut. Her voice was a ghost of a sound, a breath against my ear, so quiet I almost didn't catch it. You have to get off this plane. Immediately. I froze. My heart, which had been beating a steady, happy rhythm, stuttered to a halt. I turned my head, my eyes locking with hers. What? I mouthed, my brain refusing to process the words. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head, her gaze flicking towards Mark for a fraction of a second, then back to me. The message was clear. The danger was him. Lena. Everything okay? Mark's voice cut through the fog. He was smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. They were calculating, watching the flight attendants retreating back. My mind raced. Get off the plane? Why? Was it a security threat? A bomb? But her look, it was personal. It was directed at me. It was a warning. And in that split second, a lifetime of love, of shared memories, of trust, it all collided with that single, terrified whisper. A war erupted inside me. Logic said, listen to the warning. Get up. Run. But my heart, my foolish, loyal heart, screamed that this was my husband. The man who had held me when my father passed away. The man who brought me coffee in bed every Sunday. So I did the stupidest thing I have ever done in my entire life. I looked at Mark, forced a smile, and said, yeah, honey. Everything's fine. She was just checking the bin. I refused the warning. I fastened my seatbelt. And I sealed my fate. As the plane lifted into the night sky, leaving the glittering grid of New York behind, I felt a chill settle deep in my bones. The whisper clung to me like a shroud. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Chloe was unstable. Maybe it was a case of mistaken identity. Maybe she had confused me with someone else. But that look in her eyes, it was too specific. Too desperate. I glanced at Mark. He had put on his headphones and was already watching a movie, looking completely at ease. The man I married. The successful architect with the charming smile and the seemingly endless capacity for love. We had built a beautiful life together. A luxurious apartment overlooking Central Park. Holidays in the Maldives. A social circle filled with influential people. From the outside, we were the perfect couple. The golden couple. But was it all just gold plating on a rusty cage? I thought back, my mind now a detective searching for clues in the archives of our marriage. The late nights at the office that had become more frequent. The new passcode on his phone. The way he'd sometimes look at me with a strange, detached expression, as if he were planning a business merger, not a life with his wife. There was one memory that surfaced, sharp and painful. A month ago, I'd found a receipt in his jacket pocket. It was for a jeweler, for a pair of diamond earrings. My birthday was coming up. I'd been thrilled, touched by his thoughtfulness. On my birthday, he presented me with a beautiful, but much simpler, pearl necklace. When I'd asked, lightly, teasingly, if he'd had a hard time choosing, he'd laughed it off. The diamonds were too flashy, my love. Pearls have more class. I'd believed him. Of course, I had. Why wouldn't I? Now, sitting strapped into seat 12A, hurtling over the Atlantic Ocean, the pieces started to click into a horrifying picture. The diamonds weren't for me. They were for someone else. The plane jolted slightly with turbulence, and I gripped the armrests. It felt like a metaphor for my life. Everything was shaking apart. For the next hour, I was trapped. Trapped in a metal tube, 30,000 feet in the air, sitting next to a stranger I had called my husband. Every time Chloe walked down the aisle, my eyes would dart to her. She never looked at me again. Her professionalism was a steel wall. But the tension was a live wire in the air between us. Mark reached over and took my hand again. "You're quiet, Lena. Excited for Paris?" His touch made my skin crawl. It was all I could do not to snatch my hand away. I had to play along. I had to be the naive, trusting wife. Because if Chloe's warning was real, then the danger wasn't just emotional. It was physical. And I was completely, utterly alone. What was waiting for me in Paris? A romantic hotel? A candlelit dinner by the Seine? Or was it something else? A trap, meticulously laid by the man sitting beside me? The fasten seatbelt sign pinged off. The journey had just begun. But for me, the countdown had already started. I couldn't take it anymore. The silence. The pretending. The screaming questions in my head. I had to move. I had to find out more. "I'm just going to the restroom," I murmured to Mark, unclipping my seatbelt. He gave me a distracted nod, his eyes still on his screen. Walking down the aisle felt like walking the plank. My legs were weak. Every passenger was a potential enemy. Every sound was a threat. I reached the lavatory at the back of the plane and locked the door behind me, leaning against it, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I looked at myself in the tiny, illuminated mirror. The woman staring back was pale, her eyes wide with a fear I didn't fully understand. Who was I? The trusting Lena, or the woman who was starting to see the horrifying truth? That's when I saw it. A small, folded piece of paper, tucked neatly into the corner of the mirror frame. My heart hammered against my ribs. With trembling fingers, I reached for it and unfolded it. The handwriting was rushed, elegant. "His not who you think. His with Global United Assurance. Your life is the policy. Destination is not safety. Do not leave the airport with him. Find a man named Henri at the Le Café Blanc in Terminal 2. Say Chloe sent you. Trust no one else." The world tilted. The roar of the engines faded into a dull buzz. I read the words again and again. Global United Assurance. I knew that name. It was a massive, controversial insurance company, known for its high-stakes policies and its ruthless fight against payouts. Your life is the policy. It hit me with the force of a physical blow. Mark had taken out a life insurance policy on me. A huge one. And he was planning to cash it in. This wasn't a divorce. This was an elimination. The romantic trip to Paris, it was a setup. A perfect place for a tragic accident. A fall from a hotel balcony. A mugging gone wrong in a dark alley. A sudden, mysterious disappearance in a foreign city where we knew no one. My knees buckled. I gripped the sink to stop myself from falling. The nausea was overwhelming. This was the betrayal. This was the depth of his deception. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was planning my funeral. And Chloe, she was his conscience. Or perhaps, she was a pawn who had discovered the game and grown a soul. She was risking her career, maybe even her own safety, to warn me. I flushed the toilet for noise, tore the note into 100 tiny pieces, and sent them swirling down the drain. The evidence was gone, but the message was burned into my mind. Do not leave the airport with him. Find Henri. Trust no one else. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to regain some composure. I had to go back out there. I had to sit next to the man who had just signed my death warrant and pretend I didn't know. I had to act the part of the happy, oblivious wife for a few more hours. It was the greatest performance of my life. And if I failed, it would be my last. The descent into Paris was the longest hour of my life. The plane shuddered and dropped, and my stomach dropped with it. Outside the window, the city of light was shrouded in a dreary, damp grey. It felt fitting. There was no romance here. Only menace. Mark was cheerful, talkative. Too talkative. "I can't wait for you to see the hotel, Lena. It's this beautiful little boutique place in Montmartre. Very authentic. Off the beaten path. Off the beaten path." The words sent a fresh jolt of terror through me. Of course it was. No witnesses. "That sounds lovely, honey," I heard myself say, my voice sounding alien and calm. "But you know, I'm feeling a bit jet-lagged already. Maybe we could just get a coffee at the airport first." I saw there's a nice-looking cafe in Terminal 2. Le Café Blanc. I held my breath. I had to plant the seed. I had to make him think it was his idea to go there. He frowned slightly. "The airport coffee is terrible, my love. Our driver is waiting. The hotel will have excellent coffee." Our driver. Of course. Another link in the chain. Another person working for him. "Please, Mark." I put on my best pouting face, the one he used to find endearing. "Just a quick one to wake me up. I don't want to be a zombie for our first day in Paris." He studied my face for a long moment. I could see the calculations behind his eyes. Arguing might look suspicious. Humoring the doomed wife for one last coffee, that was manageable. He forced a smile. "Of course, darling. Anything for you." As we taxied to the gate, I felt a strange sense of clarity descend upon me. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach, but it was now joined by something else. A burning, white-hot anger. This man had shared my bed, my dreams, my life. And he had thrown it all away for money. We disembarked. The flow of passengers carried us like a river through the sterile, brightly lit corridors of the airport. I walked slightly ahead, my senses on high alert. I saw Chloe once, near the crew area. Our eyes met for a fleeting second. There was no recognition, no smile. Just a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Then she was gone. My guardian angel in a uniform, vanishing back into the world. We followed the signs for baggage claim and exits. And then I saw it. A sleek sign, Le Café Blanc. It was just ahead, to the right, a relatively quiet spot with a view of the runways. My heart was a drum solo in my chest. This was it. My escape. My first step towards, what? Revenge. Survival. Justice. "There it is," I said, pointing, my voice unnaturally bright. Mark's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his smile tightened. "The driver is getting impatient. Let's make it quick." He was herding me now. I could feel it. The noose was tightening. I had to get to Henri. I had to get away from Mark. We entered the cafe. It was warm, smelling of fresh coffee and baked pastries. It looked so normal. So safe. But for me, it was the most dangerous place on earth. My eyes scanned the room. A businessman on a laptop. A family with tired children. A lone man sitting at a corner table, reading a French newspaper. He was older, with kind, intelligent eyes and a weathered face. He looked up, and his gaze seemed to sweep the room, lingering on me for just a moment too long. Was that him? Was that Henri? I took a step towards the counter, but Mark's hand closed around my arm. His grip was firm. Too firm. "I'll order, Lena. You find us a table." His voice was pleasant, but his eyes were hard. The mask was slipping. He didn't want me talking to anyone. He didn't want me out of his sight. I was trapped. Again. How could I get to the man in the corner without Mark seeing? How could I speak the words Chloe sent me, without my husband hearing? The game had changed. The chessboard was set. And my next move would determine whether I lived or died. Think, Lena, think. My mind was racing, searching for a way out. Mark was at the counter, his back to me, but I knew he was watching my reflection in the polished metal behind the barista. I had one chance. One opportunity. I walked towards a table that was two away from the man with the newspaper. As I passed his table, I deliberately let my handbag slip from my shoulder. It hit the floor with a soft thud, spilling its contents, lipstick, wallet, a pack of tissues. "Oh, clumsy me," I exclaimed, bending down. It was a pathetic, cliché move. But it worked. Both Mark and the man in the corner turned to look. Mark's expression was one of irritation. The man's was one of mild concern. As I scrambled on the floor, gathering my things, I was hidden from Mark's view by the table. I looked up at the man, our faces only a foot apart. "Chloe sent me," I whispered, the words tasting like hope and fear. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. He gave a tiny, sharp nod. Then, in perfect, quiet English, he said, "The women's restroom. Down the hall to the left. 60 seconds. He then stood up, raising his voice slightly in French. "Madam, permettez-moi de vous aider." He bent down as if to help me, effectively blocking me from Mark's view for a precious few more seconds. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. 60 seconds. I had 1 minute to get to the restroom without Mark stopping me. I stood up, clutching my bag. "All good," I said brightly to Mark, who was now holding 2 coffees, his face a mask of forced patience. The man, Henri, walked away towards the exit, not looking back. "Here," Mark said, bringing the coffees over. "Let's drink quickly. The driver is double parked." I took my coffee. My hand was shaking. I could feel the seconds ticking down in my head. 50 seconds. "You know," I said, taking a sip. "I really should use the restroom before we get in the car. It could be a long drive to the hotel with traffic." Mark's jaw tightened. I could see the conflict in his eyes. Let me go and risk what? Or come with me and reveal his controlling nature in a public place? "Fine," he bit out. "Be quick." 30 seconds. I stood up, my legs feeling like jelly. I didn't look back. I walked calmly, purposefully, towards the hallway he had indicated. Left. I saw the sign for the restroom. I pushed the door open. It was empty, clean, and silent. I stood there, leaning against the door, waiting. What if he didn't come? What if this was another part of the trap? The door pushed open gently, making me jump. It was Henri. "Come," he said, his voice low and urgent. "There is a service entrance this way. Quickly." He led me out of the restroom, not back towards the cafe, but down a narrow, grey corridor marked personnel only. The sounds of the airport faded, replaced by the hum of industrial cleaners and distant announcements on a tinny speaker. We moved quickly, turning corners, passing stacked trolleys of luggage. I felt like a character in a spy movie. My life had become a spy movie. Finally, we emerged into a different part of the terminal, near the taxi rank. Henri led me to an unmarked black car. He opened the back door. "Get in," he said. "You are safe for now." I slid into the car, my body trembling with adrenaline and relief. Henri got in the front passenger seat. The driver, a silent, large man, nodded at me in the rearview mirror and pulled smoothly into traffic. I looked out the window, back towards the airport. I saw none of Paris. I only saw the ghost of my old life, the ghost of the woman I used to be, left behind in that cafe with a cold coffee and a betrayed husband. Mark would be furious. He would be panicking. His perfect plan was unraveling. But I was free. I was alive. And as the car merged onto the highway, leaving the airport behind, the fear began to recede, and in its place, a new emotion began to bloom. Cold. Hard. The hunt was on. But now, the roles were reversed. I was the hunter. And Mark was the prey, though he didn't know it yet. Our plan was simple, yet dangerous. We had to make Mark desperate. A desperate man is a careless man. A careless man makes mistakes. Using a burner phone Henri provided, I sent a single text to Mark's phone. "I know about the policies. I know about Richter. Don't try to find me. The documents are safe. If anything happens to me, they go to the international press. I didn't sign it." He would know who it was from. The effect was immediate. Henri had a contact who was monitoring Mark's communications. His phone exploded with calls. To Klaus Richter in Berlin. To unknown numbers. He was panicking. His clean, perfect plan was now a messy, public threat. He couldn't go to the police. How would he explain his wife fleeing after discovering he had secretly taken out millions in life insurance on her? He was trapped in a web of his own making. For the next 2 days, I became a ghost in Paris. I saw the city from the windows of safe cars and anonymous hotel rooms. I watched on a laptop as Unri's team tracked Mark's movements. He was frantic, checking hotels, showing my picture at tourist spots. He looked haggard, paranoid. The charming architect was gone, replaced by a cornered animal. Meanwhile, we were digging. Unri's network was impressive. We obtained call logs between Mark and Richter. We found digital transfers of consultancy fees from a global United Shell company to Mark's offshore account. The money was already flowing. They were so confident, they hadn't even waited for me to die. But we needed the smoking gun. We needed a recording. A confession. So, we dangled the bait. I sent a second text. I'm scared. I'm alone. Maybe we can talk. A public place. The Trocadero Gardens. Tonight. 9 p.m. Come alone. If I see Richter or anyone else, I disappear forever. It was a risk. A huge risk. But it was the only way to lure them into the open, to get them to talk. Unri wired me with a tiny, undetectable microphone. He would be nearby with a directional recorder, capturing every word. We had backup in the form of 2 of his most trusted associates, blending in with the tourists. As I got ready that night, looking at my reflection in a simple black dress I'd bought at a cheap department store, I didn't see a victim anymore. I saw a warrior. The love I had for Mark was dead. It had been murdered by his own greed. What was left was a cold, clear purpose, to destroy him. I was no longer the woman on the plane. I was the woman who got off. The Trocadero was bustling with life. Tourists taking selfies, lovers strolling hand in hand, the majestic Eiffel Tower putting on its hourly light show. It was a scene of pure magic. And I was standing in the center of it, a black hole of betrayal. I saw him before he saw me. Mark was walking quickly, his head on a swivel, his face pale and strained under the golden lights. He looked older. The weight of his crime was crushing him. He saw me. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, I saw a flicker of the man I loved. Then it was gone, replaced by a desperate, calculating intensity. "Lena," he breathed, stopping a few feet from me. "Thank God you're safe. You have to come with me. We can fix this." His voice was smooth, practiced. The loving husband. The act was still on. "Fix what, Mark?" I asked, my voice calm, icy. "The forged insurance policies? The 15 million euros? Or the plan to push me down a staircase in Montmartre?" His face went slack with shock. He hadn't expected me to know so much. The mask shattered. "Who told you that?" he hissed, stepping closer. "That flight attendant. She's a liar. She's trying to extort us." "Us?" I pressed. "You and Klaus Richter." The name was the final blow. He physically recoiled. He knew the game was up. The pretense was over. His expression transformed. The charm evaporated, leaving behind something ugly and raw. This was the real Mark. The one I had never seen. "You stupid woman," he snarled, his voice low and venomous. "Do you have any idea what you've done? This was a flawless plan. 15 million, Lena. We could have been set for life." "We?" I repeated, the word a weapon. "You were going to kill me." "It was just business," he spat, his hands clenching into fists. "Our marriage was a business. You were a mediocre investment that was about to pay off. You should feel honored. You were finally going to be worth something." Every word was captured by the microphone taped to my chest. Every vile sentiment, every ounce of his contempt, was being recorded for eternity. I felt no pain hearing it. Only a grim, cold satisfaction. "So the diamonds on the receipt," I said, steering him, making him confess to it all. "They were for your next wife? Or for your mistress?" He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "There is no mistress. Just a smarter partner who understands the value of money. Now, you will give me those documents, and you will come with me, or this will get very, very messy." He took another menacing step towards me. And that's when Unri's two associates materialized from the crowd, flanking him. They didn't touch him. They just stood there, silent and imposing. Mark's eyes widened in terror. He looked from them, to me, and finally understood. He wasn't the predator anymore. He was the one in the trap. The documents, I said, a small, cold smile touching my lips, are already on their way to the New York Times, the Financial Regulatory Authority, and Interpol. Along with the recording of this charming conversation. The look on his face, it was priceless. It was the look of a man watching his entire world, his wealth, his reputation, his freedom implode in a single, devastating moment. He was utterly, completely destroyed. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, broken, as the Eiffel Tower sparkled behind him, a mocking testament to the romance he had so thoroughly betrayed. The fallout was swift and merciless. Klaus Richter was arrested at his Berlin office. Mark was taken into custody at the Trocadero by French police, acting on Interpol warrants. The story was a global sensation. The perfect husband, the respected executive, partners in a murder-for insurance scheme. The evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents, the financial records, and most damning of all, the audio recording from the gardens. Mark's voice, cold and filled with contempt, echoed in courtrooms and on news channels around the world. It was just business. You were finally going to be worth something. He pleaded guilty, in a desperate attempt to avoid a trial that would have eviscerated him. He is now serving a 25-year sentence in a high-security prison. Klaus Richter received an even longer sentence. Global United Assurance collapsed under the weight of the scandal and ensuing lawsuits, its assets liquidated to pay out claims to the very people it had wronged. As for me, I didn't get a single euro of the blood money. I didn't want it. The satisfaction I felt was worth more than all the money in the world. I stood on the steps of the courthouse, a free woman. The cameras flashed, but I didn't see them. I saw the future. A future I had fought for. A future I had won. I sold the apartment in New York. I donated most of the money to charities that helped victims of fraud and domestic abuse. I kept enough to start over. Somewhere new. Somewhere quiet. I never saw Chloe again, but I sent her a message, through Henri. Just 2 words. Thank you. She had given me back my life. People ask me, if I could go back, would I have gotten off the plane when Chloe first whispered to me? It's a complicated question. Getting off the plane would have been safer, yes. But I would have never known the true, horrifying depth of Mark's betrayal.